ultrasound tech. Nursing. All right. PA. Physical therapist. All right, so I am a radiologist. I'm also a West parent. I have 2 boys at West right now, one a freshman, Abel, Battino, and my son Asa is a junior. I've also had 4, is that right? No, 3 graduate. Ellie, Lily, and Annabelle. Annabelle graduated last year. Ellie is a second-year medical student in Chicago. Lily is a senior in college. So I'm a proud Warrior parent. I'm excited to be here to tell you a little bit about what I do, and also hopefully get you excited about medicine. I have to say that it's an honor to work in the medical field. I think that taking care of people in general is what distinguishes us from our animal relatives here on this planet. So being able to teach, protect, heal, those kind of things is what brings us humanity. So I'm happy to be here. So this is a quick summary of what I do when I'm not reading mammography for Marshfield Clinic. So I'm a radiologist, which means I went to 4 years of college, I went to 4 years of medical school, 5 years of residency, and 1 year of fellowship. If you add that up, it's a lot of years. I think I was 31 or 32 when I got my first real job and was in school that entire time. When you are in school, you are not dead, right? You're living your life. By the time I got my first job, I had 3 kids, I was married, I had traveled around the world and seen lots of interesting things. So if you do decide to go into medicine, don't feel like your life doesn't start until you're in your 30s. It's just that it starts off a little differently with a whole lot of head in book or computer these days studying. Okay, so this is what I do when I am looking for inspiration. I work with a nonprofit group called Rad Aid International. know that the organization put together for the conference last year that's held at the it's at the Pan American Health Organization in Washington, D.C. And actually what I'm going to be showing you a little bit later is part of the presentation that we're giving this year that goes over the work that we've been doing in the last year. I think that anything in life can become kind of humdrum. So I'm a breast specialist. I read mammograms, like a lot of mammograms every day. So as you can imagine, that's not that stimulating after a while. You know, it all kind of looks the same. You're looking, it's sort of a Where's Waldo experiment where you're looking for breast cancer, and then obviously if you find something suspicious, then your patient comes back and you work it up and you try to find the breast cancer and get your patient taken care of. But this is a way to use all of the skills and put together a community of people who are specialists in radiology and do something to address healthcare discrepancies around the globe. And this is something that I've been passionate about since I was probably, I think I was 17 the first time I went to Nicaragua. And I spent quite a lot of time in Nicaragua, and I minored in Spanish in college, and started working in Nicaragua again once my kids were old enough that I could live with them with my husband to take off for a couple of weeks at a time. So this is what gets me really happy and excited about medicine. Not that I don't enjoy taking care of breast cancer patients and working on that kind of stuff, but it's just an opportunity to do something a little bit different and do something that I don't get paid for, and just out of a desire to share with the underserved people of the world. So something I'm excited about. So I need that other hookup for the PowerPoint. Do I just pop this in here?
Go to input on the computer screen there, over right behind you.
Over here?
No, on the screen, the big TV screen behind you. Behind you. Behind you.
Elmo.
The big screen.
Behind you.
Okay, I'll let you do that.
I'll do it. Input. 3. That should take us to your computer.
Okay. So. I think the question that I get asked the most is how do you get into medical school? So medical school is really hard to get into, no joke. If you're thinking about going to medical school, you need to start thinking now about how to make that happen. The acceptance rate for medical school is it's pretty low, so about 7%. If you look at a single school and find out what that particular school accepts, that's going to be about 7% of the people that apply. And in more competitive schools, that's going to be closer to 2%. So, you know, out of 100 applicants, the majority of which are the cream of the crop, so they all have, you know, strong MCAT scores and strong GPAs and interesting backgrounds, only about 7% of them will actually get in. So when kids apply to medical school, they apply to a lot of them, because you want to take all those 7% and add them up and improve your possibilities of getting in. So every year, out of all the kids that apply to medical school, about 40% of them get in. And that includes both MD schools and DO schools, okay? DO schools are slightly less competitive. It's a slightly different kind of curriculum, but we all do the same job when it's all said and done. And I would encourage anybody who's looking at med school or considering it to look at DO schools and MD schools and pick out what the best match is for you.
Jill, what's the difference there between MD and DO? You want to explain that?
What's the difference?
Yes.
Well, historically, you know, there's kind of a little rift, right? So MD school is a little bit harder to get into historically and generally. And DO school is typically a little bit easier to get into. With that said, these are the numbers, and those apply to both of them.
Sure.
So I think that is a historical kind of thing. DOs generally have training in chiropractic as well, and they do a little bit more holistic medicine. It used to be back in the day that DOs were less likely to be surgeons, less likely to be specialists, more likely to do primary care. My OB/GYN at Aspirus, Dr. Bell, he's a DO, and he's awesome. And he actually trained at the same residency program, same residency hospital that I did in Cincinnati, which is an MD program. So I would say these days there's relatively little difference between an MD and a DO. So average age of an applicant is 24. You're usually about 22 when you finish college, right? So what is that telling us? It's saying that a lot of people don't get in the first year, and a lot of people don't apply the first year. So you should take that into consideration and prepare yourself for the idea that you may not go directly to medical school. And it's actually not a bad idea. Medical school is very intense. There are probably 8 to 10 hours of studying in every day. My daughter is in her second year, as I mentioned, and she is a stress puppy every day of the week, except for after a big exam. It's a lot of work. You're always studying. You have a very prescribed amount of work that needs to be done, a certain amount of information that needs to be learned. You have to pass every test along the way, or your summer is taken up with going back and trying to pass those things. So it's pretty intense. A couple years off is not a bad idea. The other thing is, a couple years off has made it so that it's even more competitive to get in, because now they don't just want the kid with a 4.0 and a 95th percentile MCAT. They want the kid who's done volunteer work, maybe speaks a second language, maybe has demonstrated a passion in another area. For example, I've met people who played American League hockey for a year before they went to medical school. I've met people who took a time off and did Peace Corps. AmeriCorps, as I mentioned, or did research, or got a PhD, got a master's in public health. So you might have to look at those kind of things to make yourself stand out as an applicant. Sometimes people do go directly in. A lot of those people who go directly in are just superstars. You meet them and you're like, wow, like a state competing cellist, a D1 soccer player. This is all one person. I know a guy who is a D1 soccer player. He is an excellent cellist. He double majored in neuroscience and philosophy, and he had a 4.0. And yeah, he got into medical school first shot, and he was 21 when he went. So there are those folks out there, but for the most part, they're normal people like you and me, and maybe there's some superstars in the room, but most of us are probably average being average, going to be pretty normal, hardworking. You have to be prepared to be dedicated. Average cost, this is important. I'm not telling you this so that you say, well, forget that. I'm not going to owe anybody $200,000 after I finish medical school. So that's not unusual. $250,000, $300,000, not unusual. And that is if you don't eat or pay rent. So this is just the cost of the, going to the school. So just your tuition alone. Books, rent, all of that kind of stuff. It can be anywhere between $40,000 and $80,000 a year. So that's a lot of money. The point is, be sure before you go that you want to finish it. Because if you go for a year and you don't want to finish it, you owe somebody maybe $80,000. So make sure that you're going to be passionate about it. If you get through it, and almost everybody does, then you'll be able to pay those bills. Very likely you'll be able to get someone to pay them for you. These days, a lot of people who are coming out of their residency programs are going to positions where they offer a payback program. So don't worry about those sorts of things, but just worry about the fact that you shouldn't go if you're not certain that that's what you want to do.
With those payback programs, is it like a contract, like if you sign here for 5 years, we'll help with?
So it depends. Some of them are called JB1s, and actually Marshfield Clinic has some JB1s, and what those people do is they usually are primary care people, and they agree to work for the Marshfield Clinic in an underserved area for the duration of their payback period, so usually 4 years. Ellie, my daughter, got a full ride to medical school, which was wonderful. She is a primary care, she wants to be a primary care doc. She's going to either do OB or family medicine with OB. And she is committing to what's called the U.S. Health Corps And it's basically like doing Peace Corps, but within the United States. And she will work for 4 years, probably in the inner city, taking care of patients who need primary care help. The reason she decided to do that is because that's what she wants to do anyway. But she's a very good Spanish speaker, and she would like to live where she lives right now in Chicago and Pilsen, and live and work in that community in her future anyway. So might as well take advantage of that and get someone to foot the bill for the medical school. With that said, the acceptance rate for some of these scholarships are very low. That one is also 7%, so a lot of people apply for it and don't get it. You can do military, and you can do what I did, which is pay it back. I distinctly remember paying it back right as I was turning 40, so it took about 10 years to pay it back. We were already, saving money for our kids to go to college when I was finally getting to a place where I could pay it back. Understand that it's a big commitment. You have to wrap your head around that. Nobody goes bankrupt doing it. You'll be fine, but it's a big deal. Length of the training. So med school is 4 years for the most part. There are some programs that are 6 years, college and medical school combined. Those are pretty few and far between. But if you know right now, as a sophomore or junior in high school, that you want to go to med school and you want to get through it the fastest way that you can look for those 6-year programs. There's one in Ohio where I came from called UCOM. Rush used to have one in Chicago. They're around, they're out there. It's not that fun. College is supposed to be fun, and it's not going to be fun if it's medical school and college wrapped into 6 years. Residency is 3 to 9 years. So primary care residency training, that would be pediatrics, internal medicine, family medicine. Those are 3 years. And then once you start getting into the more specialized things, for example, surgery is 5 years. Urology is 5 or 6 years, depending on if you do research. Radiology is 6 years, so we do 5 years in a required fellowship these days. Cardiothoracic surgery is about 9 years. Neurosurgery is 9 years. Pediatric neurosurgery is something like 13 years. Okay, so you'll be a really old guy by the time you finish that one. So compensation tends to increase with the length of your residency training. And I'm not sure why that is exactly, except that a lot of those specialists do procedures. Procedures are reimbursed better, and so that's probably why, because they make more money for the hospital and from their work. So, but again, you need to pick what you do based on your interest and your passion. So compensation can vary between primary care. People in average make about $237,000 a year. If you think about the fact that you're probably going to owe about $300,000 or $400,000 when you walk out of your medical school, then Uncle Sam takes half of that. It's going to take some time. You got to pay your mortgage. It's going to take some time to pay it back. Specialists make a significant amount more, and it can vary between $200,000 and $500,000, and even more than that, depending on, and even less than that, depending on what you do and how you do it. I should also say that pediatricians, architects, PAs, electricians, there are a lot of well-compensated jobs in the world, and so don't pick your job based on the money, because it's not going to keep you happy for 30 years. You have to pick your job based on your passion.
Notice she didn't say teachers being a well-compensated.
That's a sacrifice of the heart. Okay, so getting in. So to get in, you've got to have the best possible GPA that you're capable of achieving. So I've seen definitely people get in with a 3.5, and it depends on the university that you go to. If you go into a really tough university and your medical school knows that, they're more likely to forgive you for getting a 3.5. If you major in psychology and get a 3.5, they're going to know that that's different than majoring in biochemistry and getting a 3.3. So you really do have to consider, choose what interests you most and do it well. Do it as well as you possibly can. MCAT, that's the entrance examination for medical school. I would suggest that you, when you're taking that test, take the 3 months off beforehand and study all day, every day for 3 months. Because that is the key to, they will just put you in the no pile when they see your MCAT score and it's not above the 50th percentile. And keep in mind, the 50th percentile doesn't sound necessarily that competitive. If you're talking about all comers, perhaps at Wausau West, yeah, I can get the 50th percentile, but you're talking about these kids who all want to be doctors. So 50th percentile of really competitive, stressed out, uptight kids who are studying a lot. So you want to have a top score, you want to do the best you can. You want to do research if you can. So if you get a chance to spend some time in a lab, you should do that. If you can find a volunteer position, particularly in the medical field, you should definitely do that. Some experience to clinical work would be great. So ask your family doctor, ask me, it's easy, just get a hold of this guy, he'll get a hold of me, and I will find the chance for you to spend some time in radiology, or if you want to see a robotic surgery, my husband's a urologist, he definitely takes students into the operating room. You'll be told to touch nothing, but you can go in there and watch a robotic procedure like a nephrectomy or a prostatectomy or a complex abdominal procedure that might get you excited about medicine. Languages, it's super helpful to be multilingual. So if you are multilingual, don't be shy, bring that up. Jump out there and let people know that you can translate and that you have that skill, because it's a huge thing. We have a diverse country, we have a diverse need, and being able to speak more than one language is extremely helpful. Diversity in the population that's applying to medical school. They don't want a whole bunch of homogeneous looking folks. So all kinds of diversity, bring it on, that's what they're looking for. They want diversity to satisfy the needs of our diverse population. So we want women, we want people of color, we want all kinds of gender preference, all of those kind of things brings diversity to the group that's applying to med school and is valuable and good. And finally, be interesting. You know, don't just sit your head in a book all day and study. Work hard at something else too. Be passionate, have something to share, and be respectful of everyone, everywhere. Oh, okay. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody? Does anybody play an instrument? Yeah? They'll love that, right? They'll ask you about that. Has anybody ever run a marathon? I have a very good friend who's pretty sure that he got into Duke Medical School because he had done a triathlon, an Ironman. Okay, so the guy who interviewed him had also done an Ironman, and that's what they talked about the entire interview. You know, what was your time? Where did you run it? Were you in Hawaii? Did you do the Maui one? Big Island one? The whole time it was about how hard can you work, because this is going to be hard. And it's also, you have to think about the fact that when you're in medicine, you face things that are extremely stressful. You will see heartbreaking situations, from child abuse to traumas and death, to the loss of a family member, like a parent. One of the worst things I ever saw was a 37-year-old man dying of metastatic gastric cancer, so advanced gastric cancer. His wife was 6 months pregnant. Whole family was there. I mean, it was awful, heartbreaking. That set me back emotionally for a year. It took me a long time to get my head wrapped around the fact that this